I get frustrated a lot of times when guys will be like, oh, well, if you want to survive in this industry, you need to just let it go. And I'm like, I have let it go for way too long. My issue, it's not that it hurts my feelings anymore. It's that I'm worried about the next generation of young girls who want to do what I'm doing or want to, fight and work in a male dominated industry, but they're afraid because they don't want to face that kind of,
Yeah.
bullying,
Yeah.
honestly.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Women Changing the Game. I'm super, super excited to talk with our next guest today. She is a sports journalist, producer, and podcast host of After Orange Slices, Turbo Talk host and producer. She is a huge sports TikTok content creator. Check her out on there. And she is also a retired NFL cheerleader and former CBS and NBC reporter. Welcome, Bridget Case.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited.
And we're so excited to have you on and just have you talk about sports and women in sports. I love what you're doing and how you're using your voice in the industry, especially with your podcast and all your TikTok content and your Instagram reels. That's kind of where I discovered you on and you using your voice on there. So that's been really cool. But how did you get started with your podcast and creating all this content? Where did that start for you?
Yeah. Well, definitely the creating content digitally is still very, very new to me, I would say. So, and it's so exciting because there's so much of this whole space that we've yet to explore despite being on the internet for so long.
Yeah.
But when I left television about a little over 2 years ago, I felt very, very discouraged. I thought, oh, I'm never going to get a job in the industry again, because I'd been up for a bunch of different jobs. I had left my last job, finished the contract. It was terrible pay, and I kind of had just outgrown the position. And then I kind of just stopped getting calls, and I realized there was this huge silence, a huge void in my heart, and it was because I was missing creating and storytelling. And I just realized, wow, you know what, I can either sit here on my butt and at my moving back in with my parents, and because I had moved back in with my parents, I can either sit here and sulk and feel bad for myself or leave the industry, or I can just kind of take a risk, try something new, and see how it goes, because I'd failed so much in my career already that I realized, what do I have left to lose? So for me, that was just launching a podcast. And I literally was like, think it was summer of 2019. So it's not been quite 2 years. It's been about year and a half. Uh, and I was just kind of like, screw it. I guess I'll just launch a podcast, which I did not do. I did research, but I had the idea, and then 2 weeks later I launched the podcast. And so it was super funny. Like, I was just like, okay, whatever. And
Yeah.
I made it happen. But then, you know what? It turned into this incredible platform. I started gaining a ton of traction, started making a lot of moves on social media, started for me on Instagram. And then within the last 6 months have made the major transition over to TikTok and now Twitch. And I realized, holy crap, like there is this space where people are only consuming their news, their stories, their content on their phones or any kind of digital device. No one has
Yeah.
cable anymore. And this is coming from somebody that used to talk on TV every night. And here's the thing, like I didn't even have cable, we all
Yeah.
stream everything. So I don't know if that makes me a hypocrite or not. But anyway, so I realized that I was able to, have like this amazing voice
Yeah.
for the people that felt like they could never tell their stories. So my podcast episodes first began with telling the stories of athletes who had struggled with life off the field, life after sports, and because that was something that I was so passionate about. I'm a big mental health advocate, and I'm very, very open about my dealings with depression and anxiety my entire life, and overcoming an eating disorder as a professional cheerleader and even in college. And so um all of the experiences that I'd had, I would say, my past life, but really before I fully focused on my career as a journalist, I had to kind of like leave that behind
Yeah.
because I had to put on this front for whatever news station I was or company I was working at, and be, okay, Bridget, the sports anchor at this point, Bridget, the reporter, Bridget, the producer, whatever it was. And I wasn't really able to just be me.
Yeah.
and I wasn't able to just let like my personality shine through. You're on a live shot and you only have 30 seconds to maybe a minute to talk to a coach before a game. And half the time they're like, oh, never mind, can't do it. And it's incredible the difference of my stories now when I have, an hour and a half to 2 hours to spend with somebody like Ken Griffey Jr. or, incredible people that I never would have been able to actually even interview that in depth if I were still working the local news route. So, things are really a blessing in disguise. And that's probably like way more than you needed to know. But that's kind of how it started. And I'm so passionate about saying, like, I might not be on the conventional route right now, but this is something that's working for me and I'm actually making more of a difference. I'm actually getting to tell the stories that I want to tell. And it's incredible because I think so many people in the media industry and just sports in general get so caught up with, okay, this is the station that I'm working, this is the team I'm working with, like the glitz and glamour of letters or a logo,
Yeah.
that we are too afraid to go out on our own and do something different. And once I started seeing the feedback from just people I had built relationships with on social media, I was like, oh my gosh, like I am doing something really, really freaking cool.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna keep rolling with it. Who knows where it goes? But and it's totally, totally wild. There are some really shitty days. Sorry, but there are some bad days, and then there are some really, really great days where I'm like, I'm so proud of myself because,
Yeah.
I struggled a lot when
Should
I was a
be.
kid. And so yeah, it's exciting and who knows where it'll go.
Yeah, that's a really cool story. That you kind of switched over and now are loving this side where you can be authentic. And I think a lot of media right now, like TikTok, is showing a more authentic side of people, and also
Mhm,
podcasts where you can go into depth with real life stories. And you
mhm,
talked a lot about using your voice, and that's one thing that I've noticed from you. And also for not only women in sports, also mental health, you kind of touched on. And I want to talk about those two things. I think that you're such a big advocate for women in sports through this content, and really understand the disadvantages that have been a thing, which we are seeing changes now for both female athletes and females working in sports. And I just want to ask you why you think it's important to recognize these things and to make the changes and use your voice like you are and be an advocate and just stand up for these topics.
I think we're so good at being loud and just kind of reposting, and whether it's a quote or s- literally reposting what somebody else posted. We're good at talk, like women are good at being loud,
Yeah.
but we're not always great at being actionable. So
Mhm.
that's something that really has bothered me when it comes to fighting for equality in a male dominated industry, no matter what it is, fighting for respect and understanding when it comes to being a professional, being open about mental health struggles, because I've been in that position where, like I said, I wasn't allowed to talk about that stuff, or I would have been questioned for my ability to be able to do my job. And I think like that comes with, relieving a stigma. And there's so many stigmas, whether you're somebody who suffers from mental illness, whether you are a woman and you're in sports, you're in business, whatever it may be, like whether you're a cheerleader, whatever your past
Yeah.
is, I've always been that person like to fight the stereotypes. And a lot of times I just kind of, when I was younger, I was really, really good about being loud about that stuff. The older I got, the more I felt like my voice was being suppressed. And this is a whole nother topic, but it came a lot from honestly other women who were just kind of like, just be quiet, move along, keep your head down. And that was from, being like my NFL cheerleading squad, even my cheerleading squad in college. I was severely bullied on my college team, severely, severely. Like I have major nightmares a lot of times still about what I went through in college, but honestly, it's those horrible experiences that led me to become stronger and realize, wow, I need to like fight for other people, not just women, but people in general who feel like they are small and their voice is not being heard. And so I felt more confident and like I could use that voice when I wasn't tied to a boss, a coach,
Yeah.
somebody anymore. And it is becoming a new, like, I feel like recently, within the last couple years, more athletes are starting to become comfortable with sharing their personal opinions. And I'll be honest, like, there is a time and a place. I'm not saying like, you know what I mean? Like, I do kind of believe there still is a time and a place,
Yeah.
because for me, I think sports are something that's supposed to like bring us together. So I'm very much about
100%.
that and being clear about that and not wanting to divide anyone, not turning every single conversation into politics. And that's what I hate. And you like you're on TikTok. You probably have read my comments. Like they're a lot of times they're awful. Like it's pretty hilarious.
It's
But
crazy. The TikTok
yeah,
comments can
but that's
either
the
they
stuff,
can either be so supportive or
right?
just like crazy, like younger kids just saying whatever they want.
Oh my gosh. And like, oh my gosh, the comments are awful, but that's kind of what inspires me. I get frustrated a lot of times when guys will be like, "Oh, well, if you want to survive in this industry, you need to just let it go." And I'm like, "I have let it go for way too long." My issue, it's not that it hurts my feelings anymore. It's that I'm worried about the next generation of young girls who want to do what I'm doing or want to, fight and work in a male-dominated industry, but they're afraid because they don't want to face that kind of
Yeah.
bullying,
Yeah.
honestly. And so that's really what it is for me. And I think forever I was always kind of like, oh, just ignore the haters, whatever, blah blah blah. And I'm like, honestly though, what's going to change if we just kind of ignore and act like we're strong? Because it's okay not to be strong every day. And so that's why I am so passionate about using my voice. Like I want to be real and I will be honest with people like, "Hey, I'm having a really bad day," or whatever. And it's just honestly all about being real because people are so sick of watching the talking heads or whatever, everyone being so perfect. And freaking millennials, like I'll hate on my generation because we got so obsessed with making the perfect Instagram feed, the perfect
Yeah.
brand. Everything needed to be so perfect. And that kind of like crushed creativity and
Yeah.
crushed just our individuality. And still so many people are so trapped by that. And I think that's why a lot of millennials are afraid to get on TikTok because
Yeah.
TikTok is way more raw and real.
Way
And
more.
you have to kind of just like throw your inhibitions out the door
Yeah.
and be okay with showing the real you. And that's what I'm very passionate about, like combining my professional work, storytelling with who I am.
Yeah, and you do a very good job at it. And through all these kind of hard topics, you stay creative in them, making them intriguing and kind of fun. Like I noticed you talking about women in sports was kind of a hard topic that you made like a fun video about it, or mental health, making it kind of intriguing. And what kind of pushes you and motivates you to stay creative, not just in your videos or just in your work in general? What is there anything specific that keeps you creative and motivated to do these things and
That's a
make
great
them intriguing?
Yeah, well, that's a great question just because I'm sure you have felt this way a lot of times. Like, there are so many moments, especially when I'm dealing with other things in my life. Like, I had a lot of personal stuff happening at the end of last year, and then I've been dealing with this horrible arm injury for the past like 3 months. And so, honestly, like my creativity, I've always been very creative, but my creative juices can kind of go stagnant and stop flowing for a bit. And I used to just sort of push through it because that's what I was used to doing when I worked at a news station, and I was used to having to turn around this many stories a day, get this many highlights of games in a day, whatever. And what I realized was I was like, you know what? I'm my own boss. If I'm not feeling up to it right now, then the story's not going to be good. Then I'm going to be sitting here forever with writer's block and feel like I'm not putting out a story that reflects me. And that's kind of how it's been honestly for the last like 2 weeks. I'm kind of getting I'm on the mend here, but the last couple weeks, I just was like I can't do it. I need to just like take a breather. And at first I was really stressed about it because I felt like, man, I'm missing out on, the opportunity to get out a lot of Final Four content. And, this is the NCAA tournament, biggest part of the year for college sports often. And And I was like, you know what? You got to let that shit go. Like, it's sometimes we're not able to do everything, and you need to just take a beat and take care of yourself. And so for me, that's kind of what rejuvenizes me. And so, like, last night, then I was like up and I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm putting in my spreadsheet a billion new ideas of stories that I had. Like, and so for me, it's kind of taking those breaks, and that's what
Right.
helps me
Yeah.
find my creativity again. So it's like, it's crazy how, it's kind of the opposite. Like, I'm like, just don't worry about it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
And also trying my goal is to try to create more evergreen content so that subjects constantly intrigue people, and they're not just like, oh well, that's over, so I don't care about this anymore, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what I realized was so powerful about when I started podcasting, like with my stories, and like telling the stories of so many people who weren't able to use their voice or whatever. I kind of tried to take that into my creative content online and figure out ways how to sort of transfer that in. And so yeah, it's staying creative honestly is very, very hard. And so you know what? Like, I just think if you need a break, take that
Yeah.
break, because you'll come back with better ideas.
Definitely. I feel like everybody needs that break to
Yeah.
have a fresh mind. Because if you keep driving yourself
Mhm.
into it, like it just,
Mhm.
your creativity is going to go. So
Yeah.
I just feel like also you have, great passion about sports, and that definitely helps you. When did you, was the moment where you fell in love with sports, whether that was being a cheerleader and being an athlete, or working in the industry? Was there a moment where you were like, I want to stay in this industry and I want to work in it and kind of be in it forever?
I know it kind of probably sounds cliche, but honestly, like, it's just something I've always wanted to do ever since I was, gosh, probably 4 years old. I used to point at the TV and say that I wanted to do that. And I just loved, like, watching sports, consuming sports content was something that was very special in my family. I from however, like, I don't even remember how old I was when on Saturday mornings my dad would put me and my little brother in the car. He'd wrap us up in blankets in our jammies, and we'd go to the bagel shop and get coffees and smoothies, and we'd come back and we'd watch College Game Day, and we'd watch college football all day long. And that
That's
was
so
our
fun.
thing. And it
Yeah.
was just like that, like, there are so many happy memories for me with that. And
Yeah.
like, obviously I'm a diehard Oregon fan now, but I grew up a UCLA fan. And so, watching the Gonzaga UCLA game what was it, this past weekend?
Yeah.
Whatever
Uh,
day that was. Yeah, that was the last
yeah.
weekend. Oh gosh.
Easter
COVID
weekend.
is making it like every day blends together. So I
I
never know.
know.
I have to
Same.
look. I have to look at my phone like 12 times a day to. Oh my god, it's Thursday, right?
Yeah.
Um, but so, but anyway, so just like watching that game, that brought me back to being in high school, and like it's just
And
it's
having that
crazy, like little
experience.
things like that, and I'm just like, oh, am I, and um like, I just there are so many things with sports that can trigger amazing, happy memories with us, and also a lot of, really sucky stuff. But obviously, once I went to college and I went to Oregon and I, cheered in a national championship and the Rose Bowl and Fiesta Bowl, like, that really solidified, okay, I actually want to do this, because, people change their majors like 700 times.
Yeah.
But also, I would say, like, the drive behind actually being a journalist came from I mean, because of course at first I didn't really understand it. I just knew I wanted to, like, work in sports and talk to people. And when I was in elementary school, I can't remember what grade it was. But I, like, you got to that point where girls started to like boys, and so everyone would play tag on the playground and run around, and I was like, "Ew, I'm not gonna chase boys, like, that's gross," and, like, I just, what, like, because I loved playing kickball, and no one wanted to play kickball anymore, and I was really upset about it, and I was like, "Fine, if everyone's gonna play tag, then I'm gonna write about it," and so I started a newspaper, and my main sport that I covered was tag. And I
This is in
interviewed.
elementary school?
Yeah, this is in elementary
Oh my
school.
gosh.
So I started this newspaper. I made all
Wow.
the illustrations. I like made copies at the school copier. I did this all by myself.
That's crazy.
And it was super, super funny. Like I remember like putting in quotes from my classmates of why they liked playing tag. And so
Wow.
it's just funny. And honestly, like that memory didn't come back to me until maybe about a year and a half ago. And I was like,
I was
oh
gonna
my gosh,
say.
I completely forgot about it. And but yeah, so it's kind of just been something that I always wanted to do. I didn't know if it meant that I wanted to, you know, work in newspaper or print, or if it was TV. I didn't really know that until later on.
Right.
But what I think is so great about that is like now you're not really in 2021, you don't have to be totally stuck in one
Yep.
medium. You know, you
Exactly.
kind of have to be good at everything because
Yeah.
otherwise, you know, no one's gonna want to like the everyone's preference of content and medium changes literally like every month.
Yeah, it's kind of you have to be a master of all trades
Yeah.
in the communications field. So I want to talk about being a cheerleader and which you previously were, for those of you who don't know, for the San Diego Chargers, now the Los Angeles Chargers. But how do you feel like being a cheerleader and being in a sport, and also you were a cheerleader at Oregon, has helped you develop into being great at working in sports? What have you taken from that with you? Because I know being a college athlete, you learn a lot of things that kind of carry over into the workforce.
Mhm.
So what have been specific things that you've taken from that life of being an athlete?
Well, I'm sure like you know this better than anyone. It's definitely weird when you first leave your sport and it's like you realize, wait, no one's telling me when to exercise. No one's telling me when to do, you know what I mean?
It's the
XYZ,
best
whatever.
feeling.
It's weird. It's like it's so weird. Like, wait, so I can go. Wait, I don't have to work out today if I don't want to. Like,
That was a good feeling for me, I think.
mhm.
I
It's
don't, but it also was a weird feeling too. You're like,
because you feel like you're doing something wrong. Like you're like,
yeah,
am I miss? It's kind of like when you're out of college and you're like, wait, I feel like I have homework, but I don't have homework. And
yeah,
so honestly, I think just like discipline and in general. And I realized that honestly, you know, I had tons of friends in college who were not athletes and you know, obviously they had a ton of fun in college, but what I really noticed a lot of time was like their um not everyone's, but a lot of people kind of didn't have that consistent discipline
yeah,
and drive. Like I just think it you apply that drive and that willingness to win towards anything, you know? And like I was
yeah.
such a competitive kid growing up. I mean, like how many people cry at competitions because they get second place? You know what I mean? And it's, you know, and I think like I don't know. I think it is interesting because different things like I've definitely changed a lot since I, you know, retired. And I think a lot of it is for the good. Luna, quiet. Sorry. But a lot of it, Luna, come here. But a lot of it is, a lot of it's for the good. But a lot of it was, um, that I felt like I didn't know how to use my voice and that I was so used to being a part of the team that I wasn't used to like being an individual.
Right.
So that was the harder
Yeah.
part for me to figure out. But even just the fact that like, you know, there was a lot of there was a lot of good and a lot of bad from the NFL cheerleading world. I hope more of it can change. You know, I think the pay, there's no reason that, you know, they should be able to pay you a full-time salary. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous, you know, and it's with how much money they have. And I think, you know, cheerleaders should be allowed to be individuals a little bit more because the players are allowed that. And so getting over that and kind of like forgetting that I wasn't going to get in trouble if I posted something on social media, whatever. Like
Yeah.
it, all of those sort of things that I felt like I was living in fear
So
of.
you kind of were controlled on social media as a cheerleader,
Yeah.
and wow.
Oh my god, totally. We weren't allowed to have
Yeah.
our last name anywhere. We weren't allowed to post. I think it's since changed because now social media is like so big that, you know,
Right.
it's like so it's it's like some people will go and try out for the team now and they're already influencers. And the word influencer didn't even exist when I was on the team. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think they, but they
That
still,
might make it harder now though, and just
yeah,
more,
right.
I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
they want to control your brand. And that's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
it's I get it, but it's very frustrating because you kind of feel like a puppet. And, I had an amazing coach. I really, really did love her a lot. And I learned so much from her. But just in general, they control like you. And so that was exhausting. And so finally just like getting to be able to be me and um they own your look. They own like you can't promote yourself on other things. Like it's just I don't know, it's a whole thing. But
Yeah. So
um
it seems like you've definitely learned a lot on both
oh yeah.
sides. You've
So
taken the good and the
the good and the
bad
bad,
and
exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So you've obviously had great success thus far with your journalism and podcast show, and now you're on Twitch, which I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about Twitch. But other than after you tell us about Twitch, tell us about what your future goals are.
Yeah. So I got on Twitch myself pretty recently. It was probably like February. And have built this live show, and I took a huge community from my TikTok world, my TikTok community, and kind of brought them over to Twitch. And it's just basically like a live talk show where we discuss, a lot of I would say it's mostly NFL content, a lot of women in sports content. And we do a lot of like games. It's very fun and very interactive, a lot of trivia and fun stuff. We have watch
Oh,
parties. And it's fun. And I, was initially very interested in Twitch after last year. I was with my co-host for Turbo Talk, Robert Turbin. We were running a lot of live events on Twitch and it was so fun. But I realized like I want to do something that's even more interactive with my community and kind of like make them feel a part of my content. And that's what I love about being in the digital world now is I can communicate right there then and there with my audience. There's no TV between me and the viewer or the
yeah.
listener, whatever. And I love that. And um so I can like answer questions immediately. And I just think and again like live content like that is so raw and so real, if so but totally like unscripted. And so it's very very fun and I'm just totally loving it and um I can't like talk about every little like everything because of contract stuff, but
Yeah.
I've been able to kind of like work with Twitch and they have kind of like a new sports platform that they're trying to push more talk show content, interactive content. And so there's a few of us on there. And it's just been so awesome and like everyone in that group is kind of in the same boat that I am. They came from, you know, uh radio hosting or whatever. Like they all had professional journalism careers before this.
Okay.
And so it makes me feel less alone and realize, okay, yeah, this is the future. Like
Yeah.
get on board or, you're going to be left behind. And so um and honestly, like I was initially pushed, like I felt like I found the confidence to do it after finding, a good amount of success on TikTok. And
Yeah.
that's why I've like totally focused my energy on TikTok and Twitch. And of course, I still engage on Instagram, but I just kind of feel like Instagram is dying. And
Yep.
it's, it's one of those things like I'm not ever going to leave on there, but I'm like, screw it, I don't care. And, but to the point where I've actually like been like removing followers and like
Yeah,
removing,
sometimes you have to now at
yeah,
this point. It's
because
just the best thing to do.
exactly. I'm like, I'd rather have a smaller community that's more engaged and understands
Yes.
what I'm doing and is not like, where have you been? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know anything to you. But no, but I mean, it's just yeah, I think it just all comes with being able to go with the flow and ride whatever social media wave is next, but also not stressing about like, everyone's like, okay, you gotta do this. Oh, Clubhouse, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I think Clubhouse is great for so many people. And I have actually gone into, I've been interviewed on certain things on Clubhouse, and it's really great. But we can't all do everything. So
Yeah.
focus on, I mean, not that everyone needs this advice, but I sure needed it. Focus on the things that bring you joy and the things that you're finding success in, and like stick with that. Stop trying to spread yourself so thin, even no matter what people are saying. And if, oh, well, I'm on all these platforms, blah, blah, blah. Like, I've realized that I have the most success and I'm the least stressed when I focus on the platform that is bringing me, joy. And I feel like, it's the return on investment is worth it. So for me,
Yeah.
like that's been TikTok and now Twitch.
That's kind of going back to taking a break too. It's the same thing. I think using too many platforms might run you dry. It's like stick to the one that you're good at, that you find passion in. And if you're all over the place, you're going to lose creativity, like we
Exactly.
talked about before. Yeah. So, any advice that you have for girls wanting to do stuff like you're doing and be in this sports world and be in the position that you're in? What's your advice for girls coming into this field? And yeah.
Yeah, it's people always say, "Oh, just get started. You're never going to feel ready." But like I hate when people say that, because you know what? Bridget in 2016 would have not been ready to do what she's doing now. So if you're not ready, don't force yourself. Yeah, sometimes like if you're a little afraid to do something, you might need a little boost, but if you really don't feel ready, don't do it. You can get experience elsewhere, take jobs. And I think like what makes me I mean, I say successful. Obviously, there are areas where I've been very successful, and then there are some areas where I'm like still figuring it out. But the reason I'm able to accomplish that is because I've had all of these different experiences
Yeah.
that have built me into this more well-rounded, kind of understanding human being. I've been humbled a lot, and shot down a ton. So I think if I don't know, like I think I needed to go through some stuff to be able to be an understanding host, to be a good researcher, to like all of the little things that go into my day-to-day job now. I think are skills that I've just built along the way. And so it's funny, like whenever I have companies and sponsors that I do stories for, sometimes it's hard to explain, like, look, I come from a professional background. Here's what I do, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's pretty different than, this TikTok creator there or this one there that you're, looking at. And so this is me, this is what I'm doing. And the reason it works is because most people aren't really doing that, because
Yeah.
they don't have the same exact experience as me. And you know what? Whatever you choose to do, no one is going to have the same exact experience as you. So no one's going to be able to put out content like you do. But if you're not ready to do it, don't, because you won't enjoy it. You'll be stressed. You'll feel insecure. And so, I mean, just stop worrying about what everyone else is doing. If you feel behind, you're not behind. Everyone's on their own timeline.
I love that advice, because everybody, I feel like, compares themselves,
Mhm.
especially people in the sports world. You look at other people even not in the sports world, and that's
Totally.
that's really hard to compare yourself to other people, because
Yeah.
we're all on our own path, and we kind of just have to understand that. And once you do, you honestly enjoy it more, and you really find your true passions, I think. So, thank you for sharing all of those stories and all of that advice. It was really great. And I'm sure my followers are going to be really excited to hear everything that you shared with us. Where can we follow you and keep up with everything you're doing?
Yeah. Well, I mostly changed all my handles to Bridget Case. Some
Okay.
some of them have like a little underscore at the end because someone stole my name. But I would say, yeah, on TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, it's all Bridget Case. And
I'll
if you
link
see one with a
everything.
little minus sign underscore at the end, then that's probably me. And then my podcast After Orange Slices is anywhere you get your podcasts. Season 3 does come out this summer. So if you haven't seen any recent episodes, don't fret. They're coming.
Awesome.
But yeah, and so I would say TikTok still is my favorite place to be right now. So come over there and you know join the comment section, the peanut gallery. Gosh,
Everyone
with my
support
stories.
Bridget in this
Yeah.
comment section. I know how that feels.
Oh gosh, yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much again. It was awesome to have you, and we'll see everyone next time on Women Changing the Game.